Very often, your new set of investors will come from some random cold pitch that you would have done, and you didn't even think that pitch went that great. And slowly over time, it converted into something positive.
Win all in, play my cards right. Up the ante, won blackjack all night. Roll the dice, let it ride. Water the odds, I got snake eyes.
Entrepreneur Perspectives is produced by Quiet Loud Studios, a production company and content network. Learn more at quietloudstudios.com. I think I'd read about you, your company in TechCrunch maybe, and saw it somewhere else. I'm like, wow, this is fascinating, right? Like we're watching a lot of stuff changing and I'm like seeing like, oh, wait. So he was at Google. I think your co-founder was at Apple, right? And you started creating and building businesses. Is there, obviously people are doing that, right? They're going to these large companies, they're learning a lot and they go out and build a company. Was there ever a point in time where like, why are you guys leaving these companies to go start up a company?
So this is actually my second company. My first company, I was with a different co-founder, but I started back in 2016. I think, for me at least, I'd been in Google for about 5 odd years. And at that time, it was really the most sought after company. And so initially you go in there and you're just super excited. You get to work on a lot of things. But then you realize that you can look at your career 10 years out and you can see like a slow growth in your career happening. It's not exciting at all. It's, you're doing things because there's a performance review cycle that's going to come. You got to show the things there, and that's how you get your promotion. It's like there's no heart in something like that. So when I first started something, it was the first time calendar suddenly freed up. I used to be a product manager. 70% of my calendar was just busy. Just cross-functional meetings, trying to convince people to do the job, not actually doing the job. And so you end up seeing your entire calendar freeze up, and all you have to do is like focus on one thing, and you really start to get a lot done. So anyways, that was my first journey. My current co-founder was also an undergraduate friend. He was at Lucid. He was at Apple, as you mentioned, and then he went to Lucid, where he wrote a bunch of software and led the hardware team there as well. So very similar. He wanted to work on something independently, grounds up, first principles, which you can do in a startup.
Yeah. When you said no heart, I mean, I think we all feel that when we work for a larger company. And then maybe early on, it's exciting and you're telling people maybe you work at Google and like, wow, that's great and all this. And then you start, I don't know, at some point you start seeing it. Like, was it pretty immediate? Did you know like, hey, just go there, you're going to learn stuff, but there's no heart? Or did you pick up on that at some point and be like, no, there's something bigger for me out here?
I mean, I got to say, it was the best job for a 24, 25-year-old because Google at that time was not, when I joined, wasn't so much hierarchy. They would give a 25-year-old keys to the kingdom and say, go innovate, go make something happen. And it is incredible the scale at which you can have an impact. But just over time, you realize that it's not just about creating amazing products that have that impact. There's this whole other inertia that comes along with it, whether it's like umpteen number of reviews, you have performance review cycles, you understand what it takes to kind of get ahead in such a culture. And that starts to take over just the pure fascination around, a technology or creating something new. That starts to have a life of its own. So that's where, I think the heart slowly starts to become less of a focus and you're trying to figure out how to get ahead in life. That starts more of a focus.
What do you tell a 24, 25-year-old that's maybe in the same situation and they're looking and like, maybe you don't go to a Google now or somebody, maybe you do, I don't know. And they're going to these universities and they're recruiting, right? Whether it's the tech or the AI companies or the banks, finance, right? What do you tell them to do before they get caught up in that world? Because that becomes a chase and a climb, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's always hard to give this advice because people's career tends to be way less straight line than it really is. At least mine was, and I can imagine it will be true for folks. But if you ask me, if you are high agency individual, if you just like to own things or work on a lot of things and learn very quickly, a large company oftentimes will stifle that and channel it in a very different way. Your intelligence will be channeled towards how to, make a career, if you will, not actually create. So for example, we hired some folks here high agency, and you'll see that in 1-2 years they're able to do things which in bigger companies will take them 5-10 years, and a lot of people that needing to believe in them to be able to do that, and just the ability to switch between different things and create impact. So I'd say for a high agency individual, a smaller company is a very good setting because every company wants that individual who can just go out, make things happen, throw any problem at them, they'll figure it out. If you are somebody who likes structure, who feels like there is this one area and I just want to go super deep in that area, I don't want to be bothered by all the other facets that come along with it, then I'd say a bigger company setup works really, really well. And by the way, there's a third category of people for whom work is just something you just got to do in your life, and there are other things that you care about. There also, I would say a bigger company is a much better setup.
As long as they have the flexibility to take some time away, right? Or work on some side projects or all that. Yeah.
Yes.
You had mentioned your co-founder now, I believe you all were at Georgia Tech together. So you met him in undergrad.
Undergrad, yeah.
So I guess there's two parts to this question, maybe. There's a lot of talk about college, higher education. So I guess the first question is, when you hire people today, do you care where they went to college?
No, I don't. And I'm not just saying it, I'll explain what the interview process looks like. For me, for example, even GPAs don't matter. Where you went to college doesn't matter so much. It's more, let's say I'm hiring a mechanical engineer for a second. I actually don't even look at the resume much. There's too much noise, there's so much self-aggrandizement. I did this amazing thing, I led this, I led that. Nobody leads, things like that in college. We all know that. I look at portfolio. I look at, what are you passionate about that you worked on, and how you describe that little widget that you worked on for 6 months, in how much detail you have talked about it, because it tells me where your passion comes from. What are you interested in? My favorite story right now, very recently hired somebody, and one of their pet projects was, look, I clean these pots and pans in the kitchen and I never find space to put it on the side, and it takes up my whole counter. So I just created something where it can hang right above the kitchen sink and it'll like drip in the kitchen sink itself. Just something very simple. I saw a problem as an engineer, I solved that problem. It may not be world changing, but it was changing for me. So I like that more personally in terms of what I look for in folks, whether it is marketing, whether it is engineering, whether it's something else. Seeing in your personal time, like how do you apply that taste gets more confidence.
When you have this ecosystem, you have this place where you can meet your future co-founder of a company. Is that what college is for you? I mean, obviously you're learning and you're playing and doing all these things. It's just this place where you're all going down these paths, you're trying to figure life out and whatnot. Is that the advantage of college, or could you have met in a different life, right?
So whether college has the same value today as it did 20, 25 years ago, I think one should absolutely question that. And I would say for most fields, unless you need that master's or PhD or doctorate degree or law degree, I feel like the value is going down. I rather, going back to high agency, somebody working on a bunch of different things, passionate about it, to me, that matters. For me personally, where finding that co-founder or working with that co-founder, where that's helpful from a college perspective, is when you go to a certain college, it has a way of thinking, it has a nomenclature. It's maybe there are places you went and hung out, or ways you approach certain professors. And in a college, you find the entire world of personalities. You can almost say, oh, this person is like Eric. I don't need to say 50 words that come after that. You are able to say that and the other person is able to understand it. So for me and my co-founder, it's the nomenclature. And that as a common setting is something that has been very helpful. But, there are many ways to find co-founders. People do or have something similar when they meet at different companies and they work together.
Yeah. Just get out there, be active, start building stuff. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. You'll meet interesting people and you'll go from there.
Yeah. When you're working together, right? That happens whether we're talking this way or often in the office together. Where's your team right now? Where do you all work from? Working from home? Are people scattered around the world? Are they are you guys in a factory? Where is that?
They are primarily focused in 2 separate hubs, and people are working in person in those hubs. I also, the company we are leading right now there's a large percentage of hardware in there, in the product itself. So there's no way to remotely build hardware, and you have to play And also, I feel like for a small company, culture is not defined. If you're gonna be all remote, it's just harder. Having said that, for a couple of different roles, it's okay for them to be hybrid or more remote. So we have a product manager that's mostly remote but comes in sometimes. We have a marketing person who is hybrid in some capacity. I think for some roles still makes sense. For the core engineering roles, I'd say better be in person.
They need to be there. Yeah. When you are at this point and you've received funding, and we can talk about that, and then you are telling the story that might not be totally understood, and we can talk about that as well, what Conifer's doing. Do you go into storytelling mode to help people understand? Like you're on this podcast today and telling stories. It's not just a story of your company. It's like the founder, the leader, like what you believe in and your thoughts. Like, are you in that mode right now and thinking through that? Do you find yourself often as the co-founder and leading this company that I need to share this story and tell the story?
So I think it's important to have a story that is based on a core belief system that is authentic to you. So that at any point of time when somebody asks something, it's not like you're saying, oh, I got to tell them these 5 things about myself. There needs to be something authentic. For example, I truly believe that the world will be electrified a lot more. Everything that is not electric today will be electric, mostly in future, except rockets maybe. And I also believe that there'll be a lot more physical level automation that will happen. Just things I believe because I've experienced that in my own life. I see that's what consumers want. I see that's what countries want. So that's going to happen. And so now how our product fits into the story is what we start to talk a little bit about. In terms of being storytelling mode, I'd say it's almost like when you're in fundraising mode or when you're out there and trying to convince people to do something for you, that's when the story mode comes out more. At a day-to-day level, it's pure execution mode. It's like, what are the goals? What are we trying to get done? What did we get done yesterday? What did we learn from it? What are we doing? So it's as it may seem cut and dry, but that's where your daily level achievement points come from.
Get to work. The people that fund it, the companies, whoever those are on that side of it, are they discovering you because of the connections you've built when you were at Oracle and Google and people you've met along the way? Have they heard a conversation somewhat like, or did you put out a pitch, right? And say, here's what we're doing, who wants in type of thing? What would that look like?
It's always a combination, but it's almost never that I've found that you had some past connections and you hit them up or reached out to them and that just converted. Very often, your new set of investors will come from some random cold pitch that you would have done and you didn't even think that pitch went that great. And slowly over time, it converted into something positive. None of the investors in this company, except like one seed investor, were the exact same people who I knew even 5 years ago. I hadn't even heard of. So the process of pitching something cold to somebody, it has two advantages. One is they're hearing it from you for the first time. There's no baggage. And if it melds well with their belief system, that's where I think a true bond happens and they feel like there's a reason for us to work together. And to me, that's exciting. Meeting like strangers along the way, that's exciting versus just working with the exact same people for 20 years.
Yeah. And they see you, they hear like maybe your backstory a little bit, but you get to tell them that from now, like not from like, hey, I learned. It's like when you show up at college and no one knows you. It's like, hey, you can reinvent yourself, right? They don't hold your high school or whatever, your previous schooling growing up.
Mhm.
So they're seeing you and then you're building a team out. And I know you've been in the HR world in some capacity, right? On the tech side of it and talent acquisition, you talk about a lot. Obviously they're going to want to know like who's helping you build this thing, like who's behind it. So you're clearly trying to build the best team. And then I would imagine you see yourself like, well, we need to be in the San Francisco area because that's where I think we can recruit the best people because they have to be here. They can't be in another part of the country, in another part of the world, right? So talent acquisition, I would imagine, sounds like one of the most important things. And that's why you've landed in San Francisco and doing what you do.
Yeah, talent acquisition. I mean, companies, but a group of people who are passionate about something, hopefully. So getting the best talent you can is very critical. And it's two aspects. Yes, you can have amazing storytelling skills, but if there are 5 people that live around you, it doesn't matter. So it's a combination of the right story, the right problem, but the right density of talent. Because somebody's going to self-select and say, no, that's exciting for me. That's what I want to be part of. So the Bay Area, being in Bay Area, and Bay Area is like, yes, it's been primarily in the software world for majority of time. But you see these amazing hardware startups that have been created, incubated, and all levels of talent being trained over the past 30, 40, 50 years. So you see a lot of good talent here.
What about the Bay Area in general? Like things have changed, right? A lot of these companies have moved to Austin, Texas, right? They're finding other places to go. You hear stories, the media tell stories, like we read about it, like this is a mess, this is a disaster, you can't move here. Obviously, it's one of the most beautiful places in the country. What have you seen it from your perspective as opposed to us watching and turning on the news?
Yeah, I think it's much more overblown in every sense. Even moving to the city, we are not in the city, like San Francisco City. You talk to people who live there, they say, good, at least rents have come down a little. It's much more affordable. And it's not as apocalyptical that, presented. Neither is rest of Bay Area. I mean, I think most people don't really want to move out of Bay Area if they have come here and they lived here, unless they have family ties or some other reason. But if you were to just ask me today, what is that one or two other locations where there's the same high density of talent? There's probably just maybe one location close to LA area, which is also California, where there is high density of talent, but it will be hard for us to move our company anywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. When all the political stuff starts happening, you're executing, like you said, you're building stuff. Are you tuning this stuff out? I mean, obviously it could affect you because if talent starts leaving, it's like, wait a second, it actually did lead to people taking off and we don't have the talent anymore. What are you thinking about that? Like when that's happening, or are you just saying full steam ahead?
I think there are two questions within that: how to tune out or tune into political conversations, but also, is there a real world on the street impact? So, real world on the street impact, I would say no. I'm not seeing it. In most people I chat with who are outside the Bay Area, including all the way from college to, let's say, 30, 35, perfectly fine moving here. I mean, obviously, there's the standard question of cost of living is high here. So, how would I deal with it and whatnot? But it's not for any other reason. And from a political conversation standpoint, I feel like just because something is being talked in media doesn't mean it's the most common thing. It just means that it was said in the most catchy way. And so that caught attention today. It is not representative of the truth. So I determine truth based on, imagine I put out a job posting and nobody is applying for whatever reason. Like that would be truth for me, that no, this is not gonna work. That's not what we're saying.
Yeah. You could see that in what you're talking about. Like you're cutting through all that noise, right? And the people that are going to be on your team, if they want to go down that they're self-selecting themselves out of the equation, they won't be a part of that.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think most people are just making life decisions based on a couple of media posts. I think the hard reality of, well, this is where my spouse works, or this is where my kids go to school, or this is where I have my brother, whatever have you. That's what determines people's decisions way more than what may seem from external input.
Yeah. When you're making that, and we touched on this a little bit before, and we talked about more on the back end of college, right? In college, out of college. Now the decision to potentially go to college, let's just say, is we touched on that there.
Well,
I don't know where you are in that situation with family and all that, but like your thoughts on that. Obviously, things have changed quite a bit, and the expenses of it are crazy, right? And if you're good enough engineer or whatever that might be, or you're good enough communicator, I mean, you could start a podcast, you could have a YouTube channel, you could go work at a software company, hardware company. So what are your thoughts on like the actual of going to college?
Yeah. When my kids are less than 10 years old, but I make it a point to tell them every week, you're not going to college. And the reason I say that is two reasons. One, for most jobs, I don't think just the job aspect of it requires that college degree unless it's like a very technical job. Again, very specific kind of engineer, very specific, or doctor or lawyer, like a technical job. Yes, it requires that. Otherwise, your years of experience and number of cycles you go through, that matters more. So get the reps in different ways. Second, I see high schoolers, 9th graders to 12th graders, like they work so hard at just creating a resume, not just actually getting the skills, just work hard at creating the resume. And when I was in 9th to 12th grade, it was one metric. It's like, hey, what's your score in this particular exam? And that's it. It wasn't that I need to be captain of chess club and I need to, publish patents and I need to start a company that's doing 10 million revenue. And only then I'll get into like a 10th rank. So it's too much. And third, the reason I say that to my kids is if they really want it now, then they'll rebel at some point. I really want it. I'm going to work hard for it. Well, then at least I know you want it and you're not doing it because 10 other kids around you are doing the same thing.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. You're not listening to what like society just seems like that's the thing you do. This year was the highest number of college applicants in history.
Wow.
It's wild. And you can imagine a lot of kids going for computer science, engineering. So the competition's outrageous. And it's for all majors, right? It doesn't matter. Pick any major. That's a lot. And then the competition of like, here, fill out your 10 activities. How many AP classes have you taken? Write this essay and then apply for scholarships and all. And then while you're doing the whole college process, you're still living life. You have your friends, you're doing whatever you have to do. And then the colleges talk about mental health and like, well, of course they're mental health strained. Like, how would it not be?
Yes, 100%. I mean, if you are tired the first day of college itself, you're tired because you worked so hard for the past 4 years to get into that college. That's not a great place to be. And as I said, like to me, when I look at college graduates and we hire a lot of fresh grads, or rather, we review a lot of fresh grad resumes. Things that stand out are things that you're doing in your free time, projects that you've done in your free time. Just the standard stuff of I did this coursework and I got this grade, that does not make you stand out. And so just because you have a college degree doesn't make you stand out. In fact, I'll be more interested in a 20-year-old who just didn't go to college but just worked on a bunch of different projects and figured out how to make something work. To me, that'll signal high agency way more than anything else.
Yeah. I love it. Your company, Conifer, if you could explain it, and there's a couple words, right? Small off-road engines. And I saw a post that maybe it was a couple years ago and the numbers have changed. And I wrote it down. 1 hour of lawnmower work is equal to a 300-mile drive. That's crazy. People don't know that. Like that's something you see. And because people are out here, it's like, well, being more green and sustainability and like they're buzzwords, right? All this type of stuff. And then, you're on your phone. And again, it goes on and on from there. But when you see something that's just like, oh, wow, that's crazy. I did not know that. So then you come up with this idea and I'll let you take it from there. But Conifer, what are you all building? What does it mean to the person that's just like, explain it to me like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, even my 4-year-old knows the word engine and motor. It's so ingrained in us where it's what makes things go. It's what makes things move. And so all of us at some level have some passion, interest, some connection to something like that. And so the thing that blew my mind is there are 1 billion small gas engines in the world. So just to give a reference, there are 1.4 billion cars in the world. And when I say small gas engines, these are in 2-wheelers, in 3-wheelers, in your lawnmower, in small agricultural equipment, 1 billion of these. And the SOx and NOx emissions that come out of it are way worse than a car engine. Because what happened with cars was, everybody had their attention on it. And so EPA kept upping the standards. And so people started making more and more efficient cars. But these things, small off-road engines, they just completely stayed under the radar. And the way we look at this opportunity is, well, people like it because it's simple, it's affordable. Even though it's bad for the environment, you hear the noise all the time. If you walk right next to a commercial lawnmower, automatically you'll take a handkerchief and you'll do something like that because it's smelling bad. It's smelling of gas. So how do you actually make that electric? What's the electric equivalent, an electric engine that is as affordable and simple as these engines today, but obviously a lot more cleaner, a lot more powerful as well, so that I can get more out of it than what I could from a simple gas engine. And so that's the quest we were initially on. And our target market is small mobility. We are making the core electric engine, which is everything between batteries and spinning wheels or spinning fans, everything that comes in the middle. And we have customers all across the world in the 2-wheeler space and lawnmower space and power tool space and some defense application space, lots of different applications that we are involved in. And we have created a new technology that not only allows it to be compact, but it doesn't use any fancy materials. Like you may hear of these materials in the news quite a bit called rare earth materials. And China very recently put a block on that, just export ban, which is that 90% of these rare earth materials are produced in China and they put a block on it. So we're creating something that doesn't use any of those fancy materials. So is compact, is efficient, doesn't use any fancy materials and has a simple manufacturing process, which makes it affordable as well. So yeah, we're just out here now starting to manufacture. We're going to push it through manufacturing later this year and scale from that point on. And that's one layer of our products. Second layer of our product is just for stationary applications. So motors, electric motors for stationary applications like pumping, like fans, blowers, industrial automation, because that is a space where if you create something, again, affordable but efficient, it needs to be compact, yet at the same time, it needs to be cost effective too. So it's a combination we are working on as well. That's our second product line, second line of business.
Okay. The companies that are your clients, let's say, are the people that is like the John Deeres of the world, the Schwinns of the world, like companies that are producing that type of equipment?
Yes, yes. These are folks who are in the industry jargon, it's called OEM, original equipment manufacturers. So this would be the major brands that a consumer would go buy or business would go buy from. And we would be supplying to them, trying to make it easier for them to put out a product that is cost effective, looks similar, performs way better than gas equivalents.
Yeah. So you're seeing a lot of electric, like obviously electric vehicles, and then you have the electric lawnmowers, but I would imagine they're using the rare earth metals to, the lithium batteries and all that. Is that right? That's a big difference in that space?
Yes. I mean, if you look at a traditional electric motor, it used to be these really long induction motors. You'd see that in pumps. And the mobility world, you never have the space or the weight carrying capacity for that. So people shrunk these motors by using much stronger magnets. And these magnets, the key component in the magnet that makes it strong is the rare earth materials. And so that was the latest best in class technology. And so what we've come up with is stronger motors that don't require these strong magnets to then deliver the same performance. And we use a weaker, very widely available ferrite magnet, ones that are in your kitchen fridge, the stickies that you put on your kitchen fridge, similar magnets to that. And we're able to get the same performance out of that system. So not only makes the supply chain simpler, makes your costs go down, makes it easier to manufacture.
Yeah. Is it going to be, and California, I would imagine, be leading in this, where they have to transition away from the gas and into not even just electric, but what you all are building, right? Is that the future where we're not going to have, like you said, everything's going to go electric anyway, but because they're going to have to make the change because these companies won't be able to produce at scale the gas equipments or even the lithium battery. I don't know what that looks like, but is that where it's going, where there's going to be regulation on top of that?
Yeah, I mean, and there's the regulations in California specifically, for example, that ban use of certain gas-powered commercial lawnmowers and lawnmowers overall and HOAs are doing that very similarly in places where saying you can use gas-powered lawnmowers. And so the world where I think we are at maybe 5-10% or so penetration from an electrification standpoint. Depends on, which industry we're talking about, cars or lawnmowers. But for it to go to 50, 75, 85, 90% penetration, the thing itself has to be a lot more affordable. The thing itself needs to perform greater than equal to whatever the gas equivalent is, because we're going to enter the territory of people who don't care about green or not. They just want, give me either a better product or give me a cheaper product. And that's what I'm buying. So whatever technologies can enable that is going to help the next drive from this 5-10% penetration to 50% plus penetration. And this is not something that's, it's just uncharted territory. If you look at China today, about 80% of their two-wheelers are electric. It's actually hard to go find a moped that is gas powered in China today. You have to go and spend some effort to actually do that. But only 25-30% of their cars are electric. So there is a space where, people actually want to see a lot more electric products. I'll give you another example. Your leaf blower. When nobody wants to be woken up to the sound of a leaf blower. Nobody likes that. Everybody wants something that's much quieter. And you can do that with electric a lot better. So there's simply functions of these products itself that are better, but that need to be paired with affordability together. And that's how you sort of get to that level of penetration.
Yeah, no, that's it. I was sitting on the back porch last week, I think, and the neighbor, he's kind of around the corner down the street, and he had his kid out there and he gave him an old lawnmower to use. And it just stunk up the whole neighborhood. And it's so loud and disruptive. It's exactly what you said. And, but people are using it and they just like, what's the simplest and cheapest way to get it done? I don't care. How is China doing that at the 80% level? And we're back over here. Like, what government regulation, like, what is it that makes it so vastly different?
I think, well, it certainly is government push. And, part of the reason electric is interesting is so much of the world economy and powers were distributed based on where is oil? Where is oil, and how do I actually make the right relationship with the folks who are getting and use that for getting energy independence for my own country. So every country sort of changed the relationships that they had to make that happen. This is one of the first times where transportation is one of the biggest reasons why you get oil. If you can change the dynamics for yourself, where you focus on certain set of technologies so that you can get out of this oil generating business or oil consumption business as much as possible, it gives you a lot of independence as a country. So at the highest level, countries need to believe that it gives them independence. And you'll see that in China, you'll see that in India. Especially countries that don't produce their own oil, are much more scared for it and really want to solve for it. The second is, one of the things China did was there were many, many products, and it forced a level of competition for people to both bring down costs and create better products. I mean, I know we're trying to block BYD, for example, in the US and similar effort in other parts of the world. But companies like that have produced extremely affordable, like $10,000, $12,000 cars that do great. They as good as your $20,000, $30,000 cars. And so consumers just want that, right? So you have to have the two-sided thing where governments want it, and so they'll create the right subsidy structure or they'll create the right incentive. But at the same, you create products so that consumers really want it. That's the reason they've been able to, go much faster. And obviously, a lot of raw materials and processing, they managed it. For example, rare earth magnets. For example, a lot of lithium processing. 35% of world's batteries that goes in EVs come from cattle. CATL, cattle. That's the single largest producer of it. That's how BYD got started. So they had the core building blocks of it as well. So that's what gives them a boost.
Do you see a place or a time when, or maybe this is already happening, when you're having the subsidies for what you're building and the incentives to get it? So like investors are saying, hey, we need to have this in our portfolio. We need to invest in a Conifer or other types of companies that are building this because we're going to get whatever from it, or you're going to have more companies that are feeding, right? Like the rising tide type of thing. Like this is the place to spend more energy and this is where our engineering should go. Like, do you see that taking place? Or, I mean, maybe in the next few years, the next 5-10 years?
You mean specifically in terms of, should the governments have more subsidies, or are you saying that should...
Giving it to investors to say, hey, invest in these types of companies, go build these types of companies.
Of course, an authoritarian government works differently than a democratic.
Yeah, of course.
But, you can have very focused efforts, both for like reshoring, manufacturing. And the way you do it is you don't charge taxes for certain products that are produced in certain countries or certain types of products that you want to see more of. So I think government has a role to play for sure. But I also feel like enough technology is out there now, including ours, that you can make affordable, amazing products. So if we just focus on making sure that more companies are doing that, there's the right level of competition. There isn't just like one company that makes electric cars and nobody else knows to make it super well. I think more of competition, which is the core of what we do here, that's going to produce high quality products for end consumers. Ultimately, consumers want it, right? You can't shove down anybody's throat. They have to want it. And they will want it if these two things are true.
Yeah. Well, then that's the question, right? Like, will there be enough electric vehicles where there's enough competition to do everything that you're just talking about? Will there be enough of this where you can go to the store and buy the right lawnmower, right? That's going to treat your grass well and the environment.
There are lots of low-stake applications where people are already consuming that a lot more. So for example, even in the electric world, you don't need to pitch somebody that it's electric versus gas. I think that just always leads to a very, should I say, I am either in this camp or in this other camp. If I pitch you on a lawnmower saying, hey, there is no wire sticking out, you can just keep going. It's not going to trip you over. or there's extremely low noise. You can just listen to your favorite music and you can just keep going. I think that convinces a consumer a lot more than just, is it the right green product or it's not the right green product. I think that's what we need to see more. So that's on the low stake side of it. On the high stake side, which is a large purchase like a car for folks, it's not just pure electric. You will see and should see a lot more hybrid cars because, yes, I get the power of gas engines when I need it. But for most of my rides, and my miles per gallon is through the roof, and so it's so much more economical for me. So it's much more cost effective for me to own a car like that. If there are more pitches like that, then I think that's what will convince consumers more.
Yeah. Well, the companies have to be willing to take that risk to produce the products, right? I don't know what they're sitting in the boardroom and they're worried about their shareholders to say, well, do I want to be the one that makes that decision that caters the company?
Yeah, it's interesting. And you saw that happening with just companies saying, oh, I'll only produce electric cars going forward. I won't do anything else. And that led to issue. But you can only stave off out of your country competition coming in for so long. I mean, you can put taxes on it, right? Worst thing, that's what you can do. But if they'll continue to innovate to a point where costs are going down and quality of cars is going up, even post the additional tariffs or taxes, they will have a very strong proposition. So not innovating for a tech company, which is what car companies should be, is not an option. They'll be out of business for sure. So people have to come up with answers. Hybrid, for example, as I was saying, there's a lot more car companies working on it because it's an easier transition for something like that for consumers as well, to some extent.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I could ask this question. I was just thinking about, like, as you're talking away, the rate of change is happening, right? I hear AI that doubles every 5.9 months, right? And we can look back, like we used to think back, like, oh, when the iPhone came out or this. So, think back 6 months ago, 1 year ago, 18 months ago, like how much everything's changed. When I bring that up as it relates to you from a level of, you could take that any direction. You talk about from your company, from how you're talking to your kids, how your kids are getting tutored, like what comes to mind for you?
Yeah, all of it. All of it. So, for example, even inside the company, we make it a priority. I was just chatting about this exact same thing 2 minutes before our conversation even started. Every week to our marketing manager that every week we got to find new AI company that is making waves, is producing something interesting, try it out. Every week, do that. Something will work for us, something will not work for us. But it's a very noisy world. There are lots of different things happening at the same time, and you don't know what's impactful for you. You just know that you're drowning in lack of information. You just don't know what else is out there, but something there is valuable for you. And we have a very similar principle for rest of the company as well. So that's I'm seeing that inside the company, every week you ask the question, how can we do better? What can we use from an existing tool standpoint, or new tools out there that we can do better? Whether it's simulation, whether it's basic project management, whether it's information discovery, whether it is putting out creatives, all of those things. I also think, so for my personal life, maybe every generation feels that about the next generation, but just the way kids are learning, the way they are comfortable talking to an AI agent, it's very different. Like, they don't come to me asking me a bunch of questions, or if I'm not able to ask a question mid-sentence, they'll just go talk to an AI agent and get the answer and come back and just work on it or build on top of it. So for them, it's just they're living with it. It's in their ambience. It's not something I have to say, go do a course on it or go study about it. It's just something that is for them. For my own self, I think I find the outside world very noisy right now. It's really hard to know what's impactful for me. I'm not even looking at it from the perspective of what's going to take somebody's job or not going to take somebody's job. Like that's almost somebody trying to project out too much because they want to make a lot of money by presenting these crazy narratives. It's just, how do I make my life better right now? It's very hard to know.
Yeah. Yeah. You think about anything, let's say the economy, right? And what's going on, tariffs. And like all of a sudden, everyone's like a econ grad and they know everything there is to know about tariffs and supply chain management. These are buzzwords like you have no idea. And then you listen to, let's say, a Ray Dalio or someone like that who's studied this stuff, who's lived through it. And he says, I don't know. So if he doesn't know, then how do you know? Right? It's like, it's just impossible. And so like you said, they're creating these narratives and YouTube videos or podcasts about the future of it. And it's just more interesting to say, like, how are you dealing with it, like you said, right now? Because where is AI going? It's going to get more powerful and all this stuff. And yeah, there could be a bubble to it or whatever. I don't know, but it's just fascinating as to the rate of change. And you just think about 6 months ago, how different it was then to what it is today. And the AI tools just aren't large language models, right? Like it can write an article about how World War II started or whatever. Like it can go in strategy. There's just so many different things that it can do. Sound, right? So like we have a call, let's say, and you get off, you're like, hey, realized I couldn't say that about this. Can you change that? So we can delete it. We can use AI tools, or we can even, blend your voice and use AI to like make sure that that word is said properly. And the list goes on, and create music with it. I mean, the list goes on and on what you can do with it. And kids have the tools at their disposal. Like you said, they're just living with it. It's just a part of who they are. It's like the kids that grew up with an iPad. Well, they're just used to swiping, and the grandparents are like, I don't understand how to make an Instagram. Like, what does that mean? Right. So
Yeah, I 100% agree. And give the example of my kids. So I have a Alexa at home. And for me, or for my son, it's just a conversation buddy. So whether it's, he's about to sleep, what he needs to say, when he gets up, he knows everything about what he needs to do in the day. And for him, it's an assist thing. It's not even a tool that he's using. It's just around. The way I look at impact of AI for me, the most I'd seen is in two places. One as a creative assist, whether it's creating images, whether it's writing articles, writing posts, or making something better, getting some more ideas. I find that as a whole space. Again, not like AI agent, go figure out my marketing. It's more, I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to create this image. I'm trying to say something like this. What can you do? So I think that's an area where we've seen a lot more help from AI overall. And the second thing I'll say is my search pattern has completely changed with Perplexity. I use that to get answers. I use that to get a well cited long form answer, which then I can go click around and see, does it make sense or is it just making things up at the same time? So getting to answers versus a bunch of blue links, I think personally that to me has changed, or that has changed the way I go about searching for things quite a bit.
yeah, sometimes you don't know what question to ask. You don't know what question to ask the AI. If I'm trying to figure out this problem, like, what should I ask you? Right? It'd be like if I was going to interview with you, I could say, Ankit, like, if I were to ask you this next question, and this is going to be the question that you're going to want to hire me because I asked this question, what should that be? And that you would tell me, right? The AI would say, ask this, and you'd be like, oh my God, no one's ever asked that question before. So it's like a cheat. And then bias. I think sometimes if you let it, when you're having a conversation with, say, ChatGPT, it could like be very positive. It's like kind of feeding you everything. But if you can allow it, like, expose my biases, like, what do you see and what am I doing? What patterns do you see here? And then it can do that. And also think like talking to it. So I can, before our call, I could like talk about all the things I want to talk to you about today and think through it. Well, can you help me turn that into like a very basic list? Because I don't want to go off of questions. I'm just like curious about different topics. Can you just list it for me? And it's right. I could go on a walk and do that, come back, feel very confident that like, oh, I have a good idea. And they could be based on, perhaps a blog post you wrote, a LinkedIn post you wrote, a podcast that you did on YouTube, and I can pull that transcription. I mean, the list goes on. So yeah, I think it's fascinating the different ways that it can be used, and it's not stopping. There's two things too left I want to kind of hit on. And you mentioned your kids and they're talking to the Alexa and they're using AI. How do you control like media, social media, using YouTube, getting on these devices and all that? And there's no right or wrong answer. I'm curious as to like how other parents are using it, because it's obviously there's big narratives around that topic as well.
Oh, yeah. I learned it the hard way. I feel like you do have to control. And it's not that kids have like poor intent or anything like that. There's just so much information out there, and kids can be so innocent that they don't even know what they'll stumble into. So for me, I control screen time. So because they have a Chromebook and Google has good parental control software, so you can control how many minutes, what websites they cannot go to. At the laptop level, I control that. And so that's where, for example, if he has any online classes, that's a laptop level, I'll control that. At an agent level, it's hard to know, because I think the kids version tends to be so sanitized that they very much grow out of it very, very quickly. And there's just like two gradations. It's like kid, adult. Adult is anything and everything. and then kid is just too restrictive. So I wish there's a little bit more from a granularity standpoint. It's also very hard. Like I would like an AI agent which is smart enough to know that, hey, they're pushing their boundaries a little bit, or maybe come to me at that point and say, hey, your kid is asking about this. Do you want me to really talk about that? So that is how, if an uncle or my brother shows up and my kid goes and asks him a question, and you're like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to answer it. Uncle, what do you think? Should I answer it or no?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd rather have more versions like that, which are, playing around with it and maybe giving me a good readout of what did he actually talk about. By the way, I feel like as scary as it sounds with AI, you can control kids. I find that there is a whole set of products. If I wasn't doing this, that's what I would be working on. Whole set of products that you can work on educating kids, figuring out how to have that conversation with them, figuring out the contours of what's possible, where to push out a little bit. Because hamstringing your kids by not letting them use AI is not an option. I mean, they'll just live in that world where that's just available to them. Might as well learn how to use it well.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You have to know how to navigate these things. And I think that's just like a great business idea. And there's so many different tools for that, right? Like if you deploy that, I mean, it can go to 100 different directions and all the different devices that are out there. Yeah, that's a great analogy. Like, I don't know if I should talk about this. Let me ask your dad real quick. That's perfect. You're talking about your kids, you're talking about your work, you're learning, you have these new tools that are out there. Like you're coming on this show, talk about all these things. Like you're fascinating, you've built stuff. Like, how do you manage it? Like for yourself, like obviously you just enjoy it. I think that's probably number one. Like Naval Ravikant says, like if you just are loving what you do, you'll just do it. And it feels like play, right? So I get that. But at the same time, like, what are you say? You read books, go on walks. Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, for me, the thing I've changed in the last 2 to 3 years is having a much stronger spiritual grounding that centers me a little bit more. So we think all of our problems are new, but in reality, people over generations, over lifetimes, they've just gone through the same set of problems. They've extracted the most relevant things. Like one of the books I follow is Bhagavad Gita. And you would think it's like just a religious text, but almost every chapter is about practical problems that you face today and how do you deal with it right now. So having that as one of the centermost things outside of work where me and my rest of my family can bond together on and be part of a community that bonds on that is very helpful. It's a good place to sort of go back and seek wisdom or go back and seek shelter in some form. So to me, that's been very valuable. Otherwise, I find myself very much caught up into I got to respond to that on LinkedIn. I got to respond to this email, and there's no like quiet time. The quiet time reminds you of 50 other things that you have to do. And so it really sucks all the energy out of you. So it's a good way to kind of sidestep from that through it.
You grounding yourself. Yeah. You've gone through it before. You've been funded at your previous companies, at this company. When that happens, I mean, there's a lot of pressure maybe. And obviously it depends on the investors and who's involved and how much handholding, like how involved are they, all that kind of stuff. Like, is there a grounding point at that to say like, just take a deep breath. You got this. Like you're born for this. Like you've got the product, trust it. I don't know. Like, what does that feel like if you could describe that?
It feels like crazy numbers of highs and lows in the same day. So I think, by the way, that's the primary difference between a startup and a large company. In a large company, yes, there'll be challenges as well, but it's slightly muted and it can be extended over a longer period of time. And in startups, it's amazing. It's the best in the world. We got the best product in the world. My God, life sucks. 50 people said no. I don't know where things are going. So you see those highs and lows quite a bit. The advantage of that is once you've seen enough highs and lows, if there is a high, there'll be a low. If you know there's a low, there'll be better times. So you can just from recent experience be able to say that. And second, I find that not worrying too much about outcomes, like just focusing on what can I do best right now? The best thing I can do is pitch to this investor, not worry about how the 50 ways they're going to respond and what they're going to do. How do I be myself? How do I just do the task in front of me as well as I can? Not saying I do it perfectly, but I'm saying times where I've been able to do it well, that has been the focus. And funnily, when you do that and you focus on that task and doing it super well, you've already given yourself the best shot from a success standpoint. in doing that. Fundraising process, all of this is always crazy. It's as simple as it may sound, as easy as people make it sound. There's just lots of negotiations, lots of ups and downs, lots of reading behind the tea leaves as to, well, they said this, what did it really mean, and how do I address that problem without calling it out? So it's a stressful process. It's just good to know that there'll be that mode, and you'll get through on the other side.
Yeah. Did you watch Silicon Valley ever? The TV
Yes.
show that was
Yes.
like, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you just described it, right? It's the up and down, and every episode ends on this, like, oh my God, they're going to go. I love it. Ankit, this is great. I've learned so much. It's a great thing to talk. And I could tell, like, you're being grounded. Like, this is a very level, you have a really good energy about you and just a good way of looking at things. And I think that's super useful, just like for this conversation. I think anyone that listens to it, and obviously anyone that's going to work with you and your team. So I appreciate that. And how would people connect with you? I know we obviously connected on LinkedIn and all that kind of stuff. And then your company, your website, like, how would you want people to reach out?
Well, first, thank you, Eric, for giving me the opportunity to be here. Really appreciate it. I also like the wide-ranging nature of the conversation. Wasn't just focused on one topic. And so you can't fake such conversations.
Yeah.
That's great. You also get to learn about yourself sometimes when you give certain answers.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it.
Sure.
In terms of getting in touch with us, so our main website is Conifer, Conifer.io. So you can go out there, you can check out all the products that we have. If you have any questions, my email is always open. It's my first name, ANKIT, @conifer.io. My home address, no, I'm kidding. I'm not giving
That's
them.
right. So he's going to go there. That's great.
Yeah.
They'll find it anyway, right? Yeah.
Write to us on the website. There's also other resources on the website. You can hit us up on LinkedIn. We'll respond to you. We're eager to hear from you.
Yeah, I can vouch for that. Well, Ankit, I appreciate it. I've enjoyed our conversation. So thank you again.
Yeah. Thank you, Eric.
Thanks for listening to Entrepreneur Perspectives. This show is produced by Quiet Loud Studios, where we create podcast writing and original media. Learn more at quietloudstudios.com.